Now look at your bottom left. I mean, like when they
Hello.
Yeah, it's charging. Thank you.
I'm going to charge you. You want my kind of charger. Uh, yeah. Go ahead.
Count at the bus.
Yeah.
In case you talk to me and I don't hear you, I'm using ear.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I trust that you are well and your week has gone great.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you know, those who come to class and you're on mute. But one day you hear what you don't want us to hear. Please, when you enter, you are already always muted. So stay muted. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Quite apart from the fact that you disrupt the class. One day you mistakenly say what you shouldn't be saying for us to hear. So please stay muted. Thank you for agreeing. Right. So we are going to continue where we left off. Last week we finished, we kind of started price control. Andrew Chum, I don't think you are the class rep. Where's the class rep? The class rep is the one who has authorization to record. Class rep, where are you? Harold, yes. If you want to record, you can seek permission to record, so that in future I don't have to. We don't have to struggle to transmit it to you. But I hope the one
I don't have access here for recording.
Oh, you can just request access and you'll be given. Some of your colleagues requested access to record and I denied. Because when I record it, then you have to wait until we've met. They're usually big files before I can share the recording. But if you record, then you can readily share with your colleagues without any problem. Right. Okay. So last week we have finished the basic market analysis, and we started application. But I do remember that there was a small matter about some article that we were trying to read that French and English was getting in the way. And that is something that's been happening in the global economy. In the last 2 years or so, gold prices have been rising. And like I said, those are some of the applications that we use our demand and supply analysis for. So last week we were trying to read an article that was explaining why gold prices have been on the tear. So perhaps I want us to start with that, so that at least you get a sense of the kind of application that we love to do in this class. If you recall, on the first day, we explained that we learn principles and then we try to apply them. So we are going to learn how we apply them. So perhaps let me show you a 10-year, 5-year or 10-year price movement of gold. And you can see why gold has really been on the tear. So just 1 second, I'm going to show you some, for you to get the context of what's happening to the price of gold. Can you see my screen? This year alone, the price of gold has gained upward of 1,200 per ton. That's a lot. So, but in some sense, the current price started around about 2022. And you've seen that since then it's close to doubling. So the world price, gold has been on a tear, on a big tear. And then what we are trying to understand is, so why is the price of gold rising? And that will allow us to apply some of the basic principles of economics that we've learned so far in this class. So that's the context. We can all see that the price of gold has been on a record high for most of the year, actually. So if you check right from about February, we haven't seen anything. This week's high record means the price of gold has climbed hundreds of dollars per troy ounce over the last year. Tuesday's price is nearly up 145 from a month ago and more than 740 from this time in 2023. Today is putting all your eggs in one basket. Both retail and institutional investors shouldn't be influenced by FOMO effect or fear of missing out effect, Sally B notes, explaining that people should not risk all their money just because they are seeing others rake in gains. He advises investors to watch the market and always have a clear risk management strategy for their position. If political tensions go, Saliba expects the price of gold to correct slightly, perhaps to around 50 to 80. but he remains bullish overall for the near future, expecting gold spot price to soon surpass 2,700 mark, previously predicted for 2025, and perhaps as high as 2,800 or 2,900 if this trend continues. I'm sure you've seen already that we've gone past that. Still, future gains are never promised, and not everyone agrees gold is a good investment. Critics say gold isn't always the inflation hedge many say it. Many say it is, and that there are more efficient ways to protect against loss of capital, such as through derivative-based investment. The Commodity Futures Trade Commission has also previously warned people to be wary of investing in gold. Precious metals can be highly volatile, the commission said, and prices rise as demand goes up, meaning when economic anxiety or instability is high, people who typically profit from previous precious metals are the sellers. If you do choose to invest in gold, the commission adds, it's important to educate yourself on trading policies, on trading practices, and be cautious of potential scams and counterfeits on the market. Fantastic. That's the end of the article which we are going to analyze. Now, let me add in, I'm sure you've heard in the September meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, the Bank of Ghana launched the Ghana Gold Coins. Did anybody follow that news? Are the people asleep? Am I the only one in class, or people are actually here?
Yes, sir. We heard it, and I think we discussed it last week. And you mentioned it last week in class as well. Yeah.
All right. So let's get into it. Recall that last time I told you when you have to do this kind of analysis, you have to follow 3 simple steps, right? Do you recall what the steps are? Yes, DT, Dana does it, tell us.
He said always starts from an initial equilibrium. That's step 1.
Yep. Oh, I thought you were going to rattle off.
I'll give the opportunity to my other colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, always start from an initial equilibrium. Yes, DD.
So identify what has happened. That is, interpret if the demand or the supply curve will shift or not, or whether both will shift or not. That's to the left or to the right direction.
Yeah. Where's my blank screen? Okay, whiteboard. Here you are. Okay. And then the last step is what? Hold on. Yes, the last step, Charles.
And then after you shift it, with the
Yeah, shift the curve as determined before. I'm looking for my whiteboard, so I'll draw on the white screen. Okay, great. Yes, here comes my whiteboard. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to move between whiteboard and blackboard. So let's try and understand. So the first thing you do, oh, Richard Odro, guys, come on. Are you the one drawing? Guys. If people will mute and start drawing start drawing on my screen, I will penalize them. if you want to draw, you have to become a lecturer and teach online. Okay, so you say you always have financial equilibrium. Guys, if you keep doing this, I won't draw again. I'll just follow what is in the slides. Okay. You have to learn. Stay disciplined, guys. Stay disciplined. I'm the one drawing, know you. So when I'm drawing, don't be drawing on it. Okay. So you start from here, right? So that's the first thing we've done. It. The second thing we said we should do is to read or to interpret the information we've been given and try to identify whether, based on the information given, you have to shift demand or you have to shift supply. So let's go back to the article. Let's go back to the article and based on that, identify what's happening here. Okay, what is happening? But the first part of the article, actually, the opening sentence tells us exactly where you should look. Because it identifies the recent gains are largely credited to ongoing economic uncertainty, number one, geopolitical tensions, number two, and strong demand from central banks around the world. So these are the three factors. Now we have to decide whether these three factors are all demand side factors, supply side factors, or they are both. And then also decide and try to understand in which direction they will shift the demand, the supply, or whichever one you have identified before. So how does ongoing economic uncertainty affect the gold market? Well, throughout the article, we read that gold is seen as a safe haven. So generally, when there's uncertainty about where the economy is going, people look at it as a safe bet. So people rush to buy gold whenever there's economic uncertainty, right? So economic uncertainty should increase the demand for gold. Because it means because people see it as a safe haven, they will demand more gold. They will move away from investing in the economy to buying gold. Gold becomes a more preferred investment. So that point will increase the demand for gold. Same with geopolitical tensions. So the geopolitical tensions feed into the uncertainty. Whenever we are expecting these conflicts and the specific conflicts I've mentioned, right? The Russian-Ukraine war has been with us for a while. But I think what is new is the shenanigans between Hamas and the Israelis, right? So that brings more uncertainty, especially when the attacks and the skirmishes are spreading. So, there's Hezbollah, there was Hezbollah, Lebanon, and at some point, Iran got involved. So all of that means there's more uncertainty for the world economy. And that in itself should also increase the demand for gold. And finally, the third factor, which is strong demand from central banks around the world, will also increase the demand for gold. So all the three factors that we have identified will increase the demand for gold. So it is clear that first, based on what you've read, we have to shift the demand curve.
Yes, sir.
Great. Great. So three factors: ongoing economic uncertainty. That would mean that many more people will demand gold as a safe haven. Geopolitical tensions increase the economic uncertainty further. That should also increase the demand, and also strong demand from central banks around the world. I'm sure you can speak even about Ghana. I think today Ghana is still the worst leading producer of gold. And in some sense, the quantity of gold we've been putting on the market has reduced because our central bank has resorted to a gold purchase program. That gold purchase program means it is piling on more dollars. So some is piling on more gold. So that some gold that would have made it to the world market wouldn't be there. Okay, so now we are going to return to our graph and then try and then see. But already the work is half done because we've identified that we are going to shift the demand curve and we are going to shift it to the right. Someone is complaining about my network. Is my network not working? Okay. So it means we are going to shift the demand curve. Shift the demand curve to the right because we are learning that the demand for gold is rising. You can even shift it another time or shift it by a bigger margin because all the three factors that we saw are leading to an increase in an increase in demand, right? So this turns out to be a very simple one. So there's an increase. Is the price, is the quantity, and this is the increase in price. And of course, the quantity has also increased. So this is just an example of a simple application that you could be made to do. So we just ask you to some news about some commodity or some market, and we ask you, oh, okay, let's use the simple demand and supply framework to explain exactly what is happening. So this is an example of an application here, and sooner rather than later, when you receive a problem set, you should expect something like this. Okay? Any questions on the graph and the article so far? Any questions? Richard Odro.
Yes, sir. So I want to find out the economic factors that were stated there. Can't they also affect the supply?
How would they affect the supply?
So producers. So the producers. The quantity that they would supply. So, for instance, if there's, let's say, because of the economic factors, the tax that they are supposed to pay for producing an ounce of gold has increased or something like that. Can that also affect the supply?
Well, we have to stick with the information we've been provided. There's been no information provided to us that there's an increase in tax or there's been a change in tax policy. The article we read gives specific information. So we can bring our own information and use that to shift another curve.
Yes, so it's stated for economic factors.
The article said economic factors. Are you sure? We are talking about the article we all just read.
Economic, there was economic.
Okay, for your sake.
Economic uncertainty.
Yes, so economic uncertainty.
But so economic uncertainty is something very specific. It has nothing to do with a tax. So we can say, yeah, economic uncertainty is something very specific. And if you want to know a little bit more about where the uncertainty is coming from, this year is a year of elections. It's not only Ghana. So you already know that this year, the UK has had elections. The British have voted.
Recording. Recording in
Well,
progress.
the US is going to vote. Ghana is going to vote. Ghana is probably small. And then I think there are some other countries that are going to vote. So that brings uncertainty in itself. The second source of the uncertainty is the geopolitical tensions that are rising, and there's no clear way of where it to be resolved. So the economic uncertainties are explained. So it is a big jump for you to interpret that to say there are taxes. I think because you specifically mentioned taxes, and tax is a specific change in fiscal policy, and that nothing like that has been mentioned. So we can't jump from that economic uncertainty into a specific to some information that has not been provided. We have to stick with the information that has been given, on which we are going to answer the question. Okay?
All right, sir.
Yes. Dede?
Yes, sir. Please, concerning what he asks, I think that getting to the ending part of the article, there was something that was said about suppliers. I don't know if that also applies. I don't know if that's what he.
Okay, let's go back to the article. It's
There
a
was-
little bit of a pain switching between the article and
Oh, okay.
the drawing, but it's not an issue. I'll go back to the article for you to point it out to me.
It said something about because of the suppliers who would like to, the suppliers who gain or something.
No, it's previous bias. If that's what you're referring to, I think that was. So, I think it's, let me see.
Say, I think the commodity, meaning when economic anxiety or instability is high, the people who typically profit from precious metals are the sellers.
Yes, that is, so there's nothing about that saying that people, it doesn't even say that people are going to sell. It's just saying that the people who benefit is the people who will sell. So you can interpret that statement to say that there's going to be more selling or anything. Because the factors that I've explained, all of them shows that actually people are trying to buy more dollars, more gold, not that the people are trying to sell off their gold. But so what this point is saying is that if you bought gold earlier on, and now you are selling, of course, you are going to gain because you bought it at a lower price and you are selling it at a higher price. That's what that statement is saying. It doesn't, you shouldn't interpret that to mean people are producing more gold. There's nothing at all in the article that implies that people are producing more gold.
Okay, so the final one. So we have 3 curves because we had is 3 factors because at the equilibrium we already have 1 demand curve, but I see an additional 2 D curves.
Okay.
But the factors are 3.
That's potentially confusing. I could have shifted the curve once, and that would do the job. I could have shifted the curve only once and make it a big shift. You don't have to say you are shifting it 3 times because there are 3 factors. No, I think that's maybe I'm the source of that confusion. But the most important thing is that you get the direction, which curve is shifting in the direction. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Dinah.
Thank you, Seb. So my question is on the 3 steps. You mentioned that the first one is always starts from an initial equilibrium. So where is that equilibrium? Equilibrium looks at the price customers are willing to pay, and then the supply, how much they also are willing to, or the quantity they are willing to give to the customer. So there's a supply and a demand. In this case, how would you explain that step, please?
Well, the initial equilibrium, I have to keep warning people. Now, Etonam is the one who wants to become the lecturer. Etonam, do you want to become a lecturer? So, Now, the initial equilibrium, where's my black? Okay, here. So just for the avoidance of confusion, I can delete this. I can delete this and you don't lose anything. The initial equilibrium is here. If you were paying attention, the video has the question. You notice that I first drew this initial equilibrium and left it before we went to interpret the article, right? That's the first step. The first step ends when you draw the space and you put the initial equilibrium. And you see, so this will be the initial price, and this is the initial quantity. There's so many people moving on the screen. I cannot say that I'm liking it. Too many people have just annotated and they are writing on the screen. Guys, don't do that. Okay, so that is it. So the one who has the question, this is the first step. The first step ends here. When I draw the space and I put the initial demand, initial supply, initial equilibrium point, that's where the first step ends. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Emmanuel Botry.
Yes, sir. Just a backup question to what Richard Odro initially asked. So should in case the geopolitical tension be in a region where that particular product, or in this case, the gold, is highly produced, or it contributes to maybe a third of the world's contribution, would that affect the supply aspect?
Yes, good question. Now, his question is, what if where the global tensions are taking place is a major gold producer? Would that potentially shift supply? Absolutely, yes, it will. So, for instance, if this was oil we were talking about, and then we know that the Gulf area, they produce a lot of oil, right? So a country like Iran or Iraq getting involved, suddenly you see that the supply also be affected. But in this particular case, if you look at where the tensions are taking place, they are not gold producers. That's why the supply side didn't come in. Right. Okay, last one from Selon.
Good evening, sir. So I have two questions. One, on the one that was just asked. So it means one has to know the countries or the nations that produce whatever commodity that is being talked about. For instance, if someone doesn't know that, okay, Ghana produces a lot of gold and Ghana is in this situation, the person may still just work with demand and not supply. Well, so it means in every case, you need to know the countries that produce each commodity. Is that the case?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You see, if that fact of uncertainty in gold producers was relevant, it would have been brought up. And I've seen Richard Odro put in a message that Russia is a major gold producer. So here's the thing. Not in the recent surge in gold price, nothing has happened to Russia. Russia has been fighting since. If the fight in Russia is going to drive gold prices, that change would have happened at the start of the Russian fight, not the recent one. The Russian fight has been going on for more than 2 years. So if we are seeing recent movement, especially this year, we cannot explain it because of what is happening in Russia. I hope, Richard, you get that point.
Yes.
So the recent surge that we are seeing is primarily driven by demand side factors. But again, you see, when we give you an article like this, we don't require you to go and use any extraneous information. The article is trying to explain. So if there's any relevant information, they will make reference to it. Sometimes we might give you multiple articles because we feel different articles are highlighting different aspects. But you ordinarily don't need any external information like Mr. Salom is asking. No, you don't. We usually restrict you to the information as discussed in the article as shared. and how to interpret that in terms of a basic demand and supply analysis. Second question.
Yes, sir. So after we've shifted the curve and then the new curve, the new graph, how do we now interpret this with the article, in reference to the article? The graph we have now, how do we interpret it?
After you shifted the curve, you know that initially you were here, right? And now this is the new equilibrium. And you can clearly see, if you move from here to here, the price has increased, as you can clearly see. And the quantity has also increased. That is it. So that is all. That's why I say once you shift the curve, you know, it's pretty obvious what has happened, right? You started from here and you moved here. So it's pretty obvious what has happened. Once you draw the new equilibrium, you know that the price has increased and the quantity has increased. Okay?
Thank you.
Last one from Kentinka.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I want to know the policy behind what Bank of Ghana is doing. Is it because of the uncertainty in the world economy in terms of the geopolitics, and then many countries are going to the polls this year, that they are also buying the gold as a store of value, or they are buying the gold, issuing the gold coins to mop up a lot of cedis in the system, so that people will stop buying dollars, using the cedis to buy dollars for the exchange rate to go up. I want to know whether the issuing of the gold coins, are they also responding to the world uncertainty, or they are issuing the gold coins to mop up excess liquidity in the system?
Well, according to what the Bank of Ghana has communicated officially, it's those two. At the launch, it said it is introducing it as an alternative investment for people who like to buy foreign currency. So we mentioned that. But then in the statement they issued, it also said that it's going to help you to mop up excess liquidity. So that's what it has communicated, yes.
Okay, sir. And the other thing is, sorry, I heard you on radio this morning that you were saying that the BOG is doing much to let the interest, the depreciation of the cedi come down, but government policy is not doing much. But the examples that you gave, in my view, I think is in the medium or long term. But if you can help us, if you can give in the interim, in the short term, what government should do for the depreciation of the cedi to come down.
Well, I mean, wherever you heard an interview, I can tell you that this morning I didn't speak. Today I haven't spoken. But I might have given something like that, but I don't want us to, that would disrupt the class. Today's class, the focus is explaining demand and supply. So, which is a
Recording
So
in
we can return
progress.
to the matter of price control. Oops, this took longer than I expected. But at least I think anything that helps the class to understand this is the most important thing. So, right, great. So, last week we spoke about price controls. We said that the price control happens when the government imposes a price on the market. That would mean that price will be different from the equilibrium price that the market will otherwise determine. We said there are two types of price controls. There's a minimum price and a maximum price. A minimum price control is imposed to protect the supply side of the market. An example is a minimum wage. If you go to the labor market, the suppliers are households and individuals. So when you impose a minimum wage, you impose it above the market wage with the view to help the suppliers, that is the workers. The other one is the maximum price control. So we should, so we'll come back to this. Another one is the maximum price control. In maximum price control, what you do is that you impose a price below the equilibrium, and you rule that that is the maximum price. And that what it means is that it is okay for someone to sell below the maximum price. You only get into trouble when you sell above it. That's why it's called a maximum price. It's a maximum price or price ceiling. Now, if you've been following the news, you would have heard that this week, no, I think it was last week, no, this week, the MPA said it has revised the price floor. Have you followed that news that the MPA, the people who work in that space, the MPA has been putting a price floor, right? I think last week somebody admitted as much in class. Oh yes, there were two people who said they work in that space. The MPA is imposing a price floor. A price floor is a minimum price control. So essentially, you are not allowed to sell below that price. You can sell above it. The same thing happens with a minimum wage, right? You never get in trouble for paying people above the minimum wage. You only get into trouble when you sell, you pay people below the minimum wage, because it says the definition says that's the minimum. You can't pay less. Okay? So let's try and get that. Now, as another application, we are going to try and understand how an example of a maximum price, and the rent control is an example of a maximum price. So we are going to draw a graph to try and explain the price control. Thankfully, last week, there were two people in class who said they have been to the rent control office. It's fair to say that they both said that they don't think that the rent control is not working. Just to remind ourselves, Ghana's rent control law, among other things, says that no controls happen. It's not only in Ghana that it doesn't work. You find rent controls in Berlin. It has its own adverse consequences. You have rent control in London, in New York, in San Francisco, the major cities, in Paris. They all have rent controls. They don't work. Well, the summary of all this, okay, people are is it the same person? Did they keep complaining about my network? Is it breaking? Can you hear me?
It goes on and on.
Oh, really? Why I said I felt that today I have a very strong network. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you clear.
I can hear you perfectly well.
Yeah, so
I
maybe
can hear you perfectly well.
those who are complaining, maybe they have to think about maybe it's from their end, because today I think my network is. So someone has shared a very interesting thing. Rent control department office locked by landlord for non-payment of rent arrears. No, I think it's interesting that, I mean, whichever country you belong to or you go to, the end analysis of price controls in whatever form is that it doesn't work. When economists analyze price controls, the only conclusion we come to is that price controls don't work. So we are going to try and explain, using an example from Ghana's rent control law, why we think price controls don't work. Okay, are you ready? Yes, you are. Okay. So let's return to this. I'm going to clear this. I don't need it any longer. So, but I think the tools have become too complicated for my own liking. So, yeah. Okay. So I'll clean it out and I'll draw a new one. So, and we are going to kind of retune the rent control law as it happens in Ghana. So let's think about it this way. So there's a demand, the price and quantity axis. I really don't appreciate people also annotating and writing on the screen. I really don't appreciate that, guys. Okay, so think about the, say, monthly rent, or let's think about it as rent advance. And then, so the quantity there is house and stock. So this is the rental market. So this is the quantity of houses demanded and supplied. And then this is it. So we are going to retune how we are going to interpret this slightly so that it will fit the rent control, the rent policy that we have in Ghana, if you want. So let's say rent. Now, so let's think about, say, a standard 2-bedroom self-contained house, right? A standard 2-bedroom self-contained house. It's furnished, however it is. Now, okay, so let's think about that. Think about the average place in Accra. How much do they rent a 3-bedroom house in Accra? A 2-bedroom house, standard. It depends on location. What's your favorite location? Medina. So, okay, let's think about that. Every month, I think in Medina, you can get a 2-bedroom unit self-contained for 1,000 cedis a month, right? Will you get 4,000?
No, sir. No.
It's more than that.
It's more than that. 2,500.
Hey.
1.5.
No, then I'm out of touch. I'm completely out of touch. Okay, so let's say a standard bedroom housing unit in Medina costs 2,000 a month. What it means is that if the rent control law says nobody should pay more than 6 months advance, then it means that the minimum amount you need to get a rent is what? 12,000, right? Because it's 2,000 a month. For 6 months, it's 12,000. It's 12,000, right? Do you understand that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So if the monthly rent is 2,000 and the equilibrium, so okay. Let me rework it. No. So I don't want to work it like this. So here's it. Let's start with what the market does. If the rent is 2,000 and the going market rate is that you have to rent for 2 years, then how much do you have to pay to get the rent? 48,000, right? Because it's monthly is 2,000, and then 12 months will be 24,000. Another 12 months will be 48,000. So it means that to get a standard rent, you need 48,000. That's the going. That's the minimum you need to be able to rent a 2-bedroom house, right? 48,000. And then the quantity will be determined. Now, then the government says no. The law says nobody is allowed to rent or charge 6 months advance. That means that the law is now saying the maximum you have to pay to get a 2-bedroom to rent, instead of being 48,000, it should be 12,000. Because if the monthly amount is 2,000 and you are renting for 6 months, then you need only 12,000. So the market will say no, you need 48,000. But the rent control policy will say no, nobody is allowed to collect more than 12,000 at a go. You understand that?
Charlie, now we are doing Monday.
Serious. Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying? The people who are actually in class.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, they tell us.
Sir, please, if it's maximum, then why is it below the equilibrium? I know you have given the definition, but I keep asking myself that if the thing is maximum, why is it below? Why is it not up? Why is it not, and then the minimum rather down? Why is it like that?
So let's think about it. When you say a maximum price, who are you trying to protect? And what do you have to do to protect them? You are trying to protect the people who are renting, right? So if it's people who are renting, then obviously you don't want to set it above the equilibrium. The one that is already because the intention is that the 48,000 is too high. That's the whole idea. The whole logic behind the maximum price is that the going market price is too high. So you set it below and you cap it there and say, no, you are not allowed to go above it. That's the whole logic. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the thinking. So in this case, for instance, when they say that the maximum is 6 months, if you are doing 2 months, you are okay. You haven't committed any crime. It's if you decide to do more, then you become in trouble. So you set it below the equilibrium and you cap it there. And say people can do below that cap, but not above. Okay. So if this happens, yes, Victor.
Yes, so that means that the setting of the price control is always in response to an existing market value. If that's what I'm getting here.
Perceived.
Like
I just want
existing.
to add a perceived existing challenge. Yes.
Okay.
So for instance, this rent control, usually politicians say, oh, no. The rent control is too high. I mean, the rents are too high. And actually, that's what you hear them saying, right? When they are trying to put up any public housing, what do they say? There are not enough housing stock. And the 2 years rent advance is too much for that. Poor people cannot afford. That's the kind of rhetoric you hear, right?
Yes.
So that is their diagnosis of the problem. That's not to say I agree or I disagree. I mean, yeah. So it might be it's a genuine problem. In Ghana, it's a genuine problem, right? You know, people who are paid by the month, and then you say that they have to pay rent advance for 2 years. It's a challenge for some. So, yeah. So let's try and understand. So when you impose this rent control, let's look at what happens. You see, the first thing that will happen on the demand side is that once you impose this price, then you realize that the quantity of housing units demanded will increase. Why? Think about it. Some people, when at the going market price, people needed 48,000 at a go to rent. Some people couldn't afford. What would they be doing? Maybe some of them will be perching, they will be squatting, they will be living in kiosk, right? But the moment you say, oh, you need only 12,000, a lot of them can afford, right? Some of those who couldn't afford the rent at 48,000, they can afford at 12,000. So you see that those people will now join. And that's why the quantity demanded will increase, right? But if you look at the supply side, on the supply curve, what happened? The quantity of housing units supplied at that unit will reduce. And I think we all know what happens, you know, especially in Accra, sometimes the landlords, they haven't even finished the house. They need your rent advance to complete it for you, right? Maybe if it's 48,000, they can finish the building. If it's 12,000, they say it might not be enough, right? So while this imposition increases the demand, the quantity of housing units demanded, it will reduce the quantity of housing units supplied. Because, you know, some landlords will say, okay, you know, I'm the one building my house, and you are the one telling me how to price. I'm no longer renting. Well, what are you going to do? Because it's primarily a private market, right? Some landlord will say, instead of collecting 12,000 rent advance, I won't even rent. I'll keep my house there, right? So all of those was what is going to contribute to the reduction in quantity of housing unit supply. So on one hand, you have the demand increasing, the quantity demanded increasing, and the quantity supply decreasing. That will even create a bigger shortage, housing shortage, right? So this gap is what will be created, you know, because this will be the difference between quantity demanded and quantity supplied. This is a shortage. So this is the shortage that will be created. And until this shortage is removed from the market, this price control, it won't stand. Because, you know, what will happen is this. If the government insists on this, in the middle of the night, when we are asleep, those who want this house, some of those who are looking for it, they are not getting. You know, they'll go and knock on the landlords and landlady's house. Please, I beg you, you take 1 year advance, I'll pay. Right? That's what they will do. So one of two things will happen. Either a black market will emerge. If the government insists on enforcing it, a black market will emerge where there's a normal market where you can get 6 months rent advance, and then many people will go underground. The secret one, the one that goes off the record, right? That's exactly what will happen. Either than that, if the enforcement is lax, then nothing will happen. In Ghana's case, that's exactly what is happening. There's rent control, but nobody respects it, right? People are still charging 12 months and 1 year, 2 years rent advance. The only way government can remove this effectively and bring the rent control price here is to increase the stock of available housing. So if government builds so many houses that it increases the quantity, the supply of housing, then it could help bring the rent policy down to 12,000, right? If that's the policy implemented by building more houses so that you increase the availability, then this policy could be sustained. But if what you do is you are not adding anything, and then you simply say you are imposing a price, it won't work. That's why Ghana's rent control policy doesn't work. Okay? Do you understand?
Yes.
Great. Any questions?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes. So my question is, if the price control don't work, why does the government keep on setting it?
Because they are politicians. Look, You know, they are politicians. They like to do things that will make them look good and look popular. That's it. It doesn't work.
So how can they make it work?
Oh, I think you've explained that. If you want, you see, in an environment where price, you know, the houses are not enough. If you want to impose such a thing, the only thing is to build more houses. That's it.
Okay. Okay.
Increase, and so in the graph that I just showed, you see I've added one where the supply has increased. If you build more houses, and then it will help depress the price down. That one you'll be able to sustain it. But if all you do is just say, I'm imposing a cap, nothing will work. It doesn't work.
Okay.
All right. Okay, great. And you know, back to the person's question. You see, ask him if it doesn't work, why do government keep doing it? I think, you know, one thing we have to understand is that when you come to a class like this, we try to explain policies from an economic angle, obviously because we are in an economics class. But one thing we have to understand is that government don't make decisions just for the economics of it, right? There are political considerations, social considerations, whatever. For instance, I mean, the building public housing is a way to cultivate patronage, right? If it's public housing, you know that you can determine who will get it and who doesn't get it, right? You can use it to reward your voters and so on and so forth, right? Those considerations are there. But if it is, so I think one thing you have to know is that, you know, when policies are made, yes, there may be some economic consideration, but you can't explain every policy purely from economics, or not everything will make sense purely from an economic point of view. We are not naive to think that government only make decisions for the economics of it. They don't. They have, in fact, most of the time, some other things are more important to them than economic logic. Sorry, I had to say it. Okay, I see there are a lot of comments. Yeah, okay. That's people responding. Anyway, great. Let's move on. So we have finished with price control. Now we are going to the last application here, and that is called elasticity. Elasticity. Now, let me give you a scenario. Okay, let me give you a scenario. I'll give you two scenarios. So I have two goods. Let's say one is orange. So let's say orange, and one is banana. Yeah, I like local food, the one that are available here because of what is happening to the city. Maybe the local ones will help us. So let's think about the price, something happening to the price of orange. So suppose that the price of orange goes up 10%. So there's a 10% increase in price of orange, right? And there's also another 10% increase in the price of banana, right? So in both cases, the price have gone up 10%, right? Let's think about the quantity. Suppose that in the case of orange, the quantity declines 1%. And then in the case of banana, the quantity, eraser, the quantity declines, say 20%. Okay, that's the scenario. Are you ready? The questions are now coming. That's the scenario. Take the scenario. Now, in the case of orange, the price went up 10% and the quantity demanded went down 1%. Is that consistent with the law of demand? Is that consistent with the law of demand? It's not a rhetorical question.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, it is, because the price went up and the quantity went down. In the case of banana, the price went up 10% and the quantity went down 20%. Is that consistent with the law of demand?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course. So both are obeying the law of demand, right? But clearly, there's a difference. In one case, in both cases, the price went up 10%. In one case, the quantity went up by very little. In another case, the quantity went down by a lot, right? So even though both are consistent with the law of demand, we already know there's a difference. One thing you can say is that maybe in the case of orange, the customers are not that sensitive to the price change, right? You know, the price movement doesn't affect them much. In the case of banana, it looks like the customers are very sensitive to the price change, right? The price went up 10%, the quantity went up by way more than that, right? Now, this difference in the degree of responsiveness of your quantity to changes in price is what we call price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand. So the price elasticity of demand talks about the degree of responsiveness of quantity to changes in price. In other words, how sensitive are your customers to price changes? Is it that when you change your price a little, they respond, or you change your price a lot and they don't respond? Okay, that scenario is what we call elasticity. So when it is in relation to the price, we call it price elasticity of demand. That's what we're going to talk about next. Degree of responsiveness of the quantity to changes in price. Okay? That's the next thing we're talking about. Okay, so in general, once we establish that the quantity of anything, of any item depends on any factor, we can compute the elasticity or the sensitivity. Okay? Now, so we can look at the elasticity of demand with respect to all the factors that we identified the last time. Now, we can look at the elasticity of demand with respect to the price of the good itself. We call that own price elasticity of demand, or price elasticity of demand for short. This is where we look at the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded to changes in the price of the goods own price. Or we can talk about cross price elasticity of demand, which will talk about the degree of responsiveness of quantity to changes in not the goods own price, but the price of a related good. For instance, the price of a substitute good or a complement good. So, example, if you are looking at how a change in the price of orange affects your demand for apple, we call that cross price elasticity of demand. Or we can look at the sensitivity of quantity to changes in the price of the good of income. Changes in your income. So as incomes are increasing, maybe we are buying more of some things. We are looking at how sensitive our demand for the items are to changes in our income. That gives us income elasticity of demand. So those are the three main elasticities we focus on. Own price elasticity of demand, which look at sensitivity of quantity to changes in the price of the goods itself, cross price elasticity of demand, which will look at how the quantity of the good you buy respond to changes in the price of a different item related to it. That's the cross price. Or we can talk about income elasticity, which talks about your degree of responsiveness to changes in income. Those are the three elasticities. We are going to take each one and look at it in more detail. So let's start with the first. Dede?
Sir, please, how is income substitution? Am I getting it right? The word is not coming.
Income effect.
Talk about yeah, I think I'm switching effect and income effect. So how is income effect different from income elasticity?
That has income effect is not income elasticity. No, it isn't. You see, the income effect, the true source is a change in the price of the good. It's how you are responding to the change in the price. So here is how it works. When the price of the good changes, let's say increases, your purchasing power has changed, right? Do you understand that? If the price of if the price of the item goes up, your ability to, or the quantity that you can afford has changed. That is what we call a change in your real income. Now, when you respond to that, but note that the primary cause of that change in income is price. So you are responding to the price. In the income elasticity, we are holding the price the same and saying what has actually changed is your income. Okay?
Okay.
So the income elasticity, the primary source of the change is income. In the income effect that we talk about, the primary source is that the price has changed and it has affected what you call your real income, the quantity you can afford. So don't get confused. I think it's fair to say that you are not confused.
Yes, I'm not.
Great. Okay. So continuing. So the price elasticity of demand, or own price elasticity of demand. So most of the time, when we say price elasticity of demand without qualification, we mean own price elasticity of demand. It measures how quantity, or the degree of responsiveness of quantity to changes in the goods own price. So the elasticity itself is computed as a ratio of the percentage change in quantity to the percentage change in price. So what you do is that if the price changes, compute the percentage change, and then compute the corresponding percentage change in quantity, and you find the ratio. That is what how price elasticity of demand is computed. Now, in actual fact, you can compute the same price elasticity of demand. You can compute what we call the arc, or you can compute the point. So you can have the arc elasticity and the point elasticity. So let me explain the difference. So let's take this demand curve. I can take a specific point. Let's call it point A. And I'll tell you, compute the elasticity of demand at point A. That one is called point elasticity. This one, the second one, point elasticity. The formula is still percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. But in this application, you use a different version of the formula because in that case, you need to know the demand function. And then you find the slope. And then you weigh it by the relative point where you are. So this, when I ask you to find the elasticity at this specific point, what you are looking for is point elasticity. That's what we call it. On the other hand, I can say, okay, the initial price was, or initially I was at point A, and I've now moved to point B. And I can ask you to compute the elasticity when we move from A to B. That means it's a range of points, 2 points. That is what we call the arc elasticity. So arc elasticity, I'll give you 2 points on the demand curve and ask you to compute the elasticity. For point elasticity, I'll just give you 1 point on the demand curve and I'll ask you to compute the elasticity. Make note or take note that in both cases, the formula says percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. Okay? Now, yes, Sandra.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Please, so with the graph you've drawn, where we have point A and B, can there be a case where you be specific that we should find the elasticity of point A, even though point B is there? But
yes, absolutely.
The question is not between the points from A to B, but both points are there, but you can just say fine for just A.
Exactly, yes. I can say that. I can tell you, okay, what's the elasticity at point A? And after that, I can ask you, what's the elasticity at point B? Then I can come back and ask you, okay, what's the elasticity when you move from A to B? Yes.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So now let me get back to some small clarification. You know, when we compute the arc elasticity, again, it's percentage change, right? Or let's fix ideas. Let's take an example. Let's take an example with numbers. An example with numbers.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Please.
of course,
Yes.
you want example with numbers. Okay. Suppose that I give you these points. At point A, the price is 8 and the quantity is 12. At point B, the price is 6 and the quantity is 20. Okay. Now, and I ask you, what is the elasticity from point A to B? If you don't know anything at all, what you need to know is that you have to compute the percentage change in the quantity between A and B, and also compute the percentage change in the price between A and B, right? That's it. Now, if the quantity increases from 12 to 20, what's the percentage change? It is not a it's not a rhetorical question. If the quantity increases from, if we move from point A to point B, we know that the quantity has increased from 12 to 20. What's the percentage change in the quantity?
66.6.
66. Okay. And if the price moves from 8 to 6, what's the percentage change?
25%.
Okay, great. Now, here's the catch. You see, the way you have computed the percentage change is what? New minus old divided by old times 100%, right? Christopher, that's why you did it, right?
Yeah, correct.
If it is, when it comes to economics and we are computing elasticity, we don't do that. We don't do new minus old divided by old times 100%. We don't do that. We rather do what you call midpoint method. And what we do is that we do new minus old divided by the average of new and old. So ordinarily, you do this. You will say, where's my... Ordinarily, you say 8 minus 2. Sorry, 8 minus 6 over 6 times 100%, right? That's how you would have computed the percentage. That's what Christopher did. I mean, that's how you all compute percentage change, right? If you give you a salary rate, that's how you do it. But in economics, when it comes to elasticity, we use what we call the midpoint method. Midpoint method. So what we do is that we will do 8 minus 6. And instead of dividing by 6, we divide by the average of 8 and 6. That's how we compute. When we are doing elasticity computations in economics, we use the midpoint method. That's how we do it. So instead of making it, no, actually, it's not over 6, it's over 8. What am I doing? So it's actually 6 minus 8 over, scratch this. So ordinary, this is what you do. You do 8 minus 6 over 8 because the initial price was 8, right? When you move from A to B, this is what you would have done. And that is how Christopher got 40%, no, 25%. But in economics, we do this. We will do 8 minus 6 over the average of 8 and 6. So it will, serious. Yeah. So this is it. That's the only difference. Otherwise, all we are doing is we are computing ratio of percentage change. So we use this to compute the percentage change in price. Instead of, what did I do again? Yeah. It's 6. Clara, you are muted and you are disturbing, and I muted you and you are muted again. I think you are looking for trouble. Clara is looking for trouble. Yeah. So this is it. So in normal percentage calculation, this is what you use. When it comes to elasticity, we won't do it like that. We do it like this. Okay? New minus old divided by the average of new and old, not this. Is that clear? Otherwise, all you are doing is percentage change. So in this example, the percentage change in quantity, you would have said 20 minus 12 over, instead of saying
8
over,
minus 6.
oh, no, actually we started at 12. What's happening to me? I think it's Friday night. No, my eraser has frozen. That is great. So to be 12. Oh, no, that was correct. Yeah, I think
Sir, please, I think there's an issue.
There's an issue with what?
Like the new minus old is supposed to be 20 minus 12.
Yeah, I know. I think maybe I should go and take a drink break. So new minus old over, instead of saying over old, we do what? Over the average of 20 and 12. Okay? Over half 20 plus 12. That's how you do it. When it comes to elasticity, this is what you do. And don't ask me. This is how you do it. Okay. All right. That would be the numerator. Okay. So this, the numerator of the formula, that is it. And the denominator will be, the new is what? 6 minus 8 over half 6 plus 8. So that's how you would have done it. 6 plus 8. Yes, Yvette. What's your problem? So this is it. So where this is the denominator. Yvette, what's your question?
Sir.
Yes?
No, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Is it always that the average will be half minus the new plus the old?
Yes, of course. It's half. So we are trying to find the average. The average of two numbers is half, is the sum of the two divided by 2. That's exactly it. Yes. When it comes to elasticity, this is how you compute.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So this is a keep note. I know whenever we tell percentage change, you are going to do new minus old divided by new, divided by old. Just keep in mind, when it comes to elasticity, it's not like that. We do what we call midpoint method. So new minus old divided by the average of new and old. Okay? So I'm going to clean up this mess and then we will continue. But I hope people are following. I know it's getting a little bit technical, but you know, like I told, I think Florence Bentum is not here today. Yes.
Yes, it's getting very technical.
I know. I know. But you know, that's why I'm being very patient and slow. This slide alone, I spent like 15 minutes. So please follow. If you
We are
follow,
following.
very good. I'm glad that you follow.
Following, but I'm seeing stars.
Well, actually, I haven't drawn a star on the screen, so I suspect the star is on only your screen.
So please slow down.
Guys, have you seen a star on the screen?
No, but we are seeing it with our
Yes, you
eyes.
can see it. Yes.
You know, that thing where you know you see something which is different. I mean, your eyes are seeing something which is not the real deal. I think that's what is happening. Harold, what's your question? Sorry. Classwork, what's your question?
Okay, sir, my question is, can we get a negative value when solving? Because I can see that the classification you have ED greater than 1 and its elasticity, ED less than 1 and equal to 1.
You always get, for a normal demand function, you always get negative.
Okay, because
the law of demand says when the price goes up, the quantity will go down, right? So if
Yes.
the percentage change in quantity is positive, the percentage change in price will be negative. So when you compute elasticity, you always get a negative number.
Okay. That's the value. Okay, I get you.
The value will always be negative because that's the law of demand. When price goes
Yeah.
up, the quantity goes the other way. Okay? So in fact, when you are doing this classification, so the classification that we have put here, this classification, we focus on the absolute value. So this is the value you compute. We look at the absolute value. That is, we ignore the negative sign for classification purposes only. Okay. Yes, Dede.
Yes, please. Mine has to do with identification of new minus old. So it means that the letters will be a guide to you to know the new and old. Is that it?
Well, don't say the letters will be a guide. They will have to tell you this was the initial and this is our new position. That's how you know
Okay.
what is new and what is
Okay.
old.
Okay. That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay. My back is setting. I'll stand for. Let me stretch my back for 2 minutes. Is that okay with you?
Okay, so
Sitting.
that we can also stretch.
Yeah, sitting for 2.5 hours is not an easy task.
Not at all.
But God is good. So let's take a 3-minute break. Stretch your back. That's what me. I'm
Thank
stretching
you.
mine. If you don't want
I'm
to do.
also stretched, no.
Yeah, at least you can afford to be walking. I have to sit because you can be using your phone and be walking around. Me, I have to sit.
Some of us are using our laptop, so we can't be.
Yeah. What is somebody saying? We need counseling. You crazy. What? I suspect it's not about the class, is it? I don't know what kind of counseling Hassana is talking about. Hassana, are you all right there? Are you okay?
Say I'm not. Please, I'm not.
You sound so worried. What is eating you up?
Hey, I can't give up, but this thing is not easy.
Oh, Hassana, come on. Don't worry. I'm sure you have gone through worse things than this. Come on. You'll be all right. Look, ordinary people who are more ordinary than you have done it and they've been okay. So you'll be all right, okay?
Thank you.
And if it helps, know that you are not the only one who feels like this. So it's okay. The first time, many people will feel like this. When you sit down and then you go through it, you realize that there's nothing in it. It's just ordinary stuff, okay? So don't get worried. Don't get worked up.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now let's return. I think we've taken 3 minutes to stretch our limbs, so we can continue. Are you ready to continue? Of course, you are ready. Yeah. Right. So now, like I was saying before we took that short break, because of the law of demand, which says that when prices are high, quantities fall, it means that when you compute the elasticity, you always get a negative number. Now, we are going to use the elasticity to classify goods. So, for purposes of that classification, we use the absolute value of the elasticity. We disregard the negative sign because it's always going to be negative. We rather focus on the absolute value. And based on the absolute value, if the elasticity you compute in absolute terms is greater than 1, we say demand is price elastic. If it is less than 1 in absolute terms, we say demand is price inelastic. If it is exactly equal to 1 in absolute terms, we say it is unit elastic. If it is approaching infinity, that means it's extremely high. In absolute terms, it is perfectly elastic. And if it is zero, it is perfectly inelastic. Okay, so let me recap. Because of the law of demand, when you compute the price elasticity of demand, it will always be negative. So when we are using the elasticity number computed to determine or to classify the good, you ignore the negative sign and you focus on the absolute value. And if the absolute value is greater than 1, we say demand is price elastic. If the absolute value is less than 1, we say demand is price inelastic. If it's exactly equal to 1, demand is unit elastic. If it's equal to or close to infinity, we say it's perfectly elastic. If it is 0, we say it's perfectly inelastic. Okay. So now, let's return to the example we started with. Yes, Sandra Biniwa.
Sir, please, sir, I wanted you to give me an example of a number that would look infinity, because I'm a bit, you say when it is higher,
Yeah.
like,
a number like, what number comes after
if you
1,
can help me with
like
that.
1 trillion? You know, a number like 1 trillion is almost like infinity. So, I mean, in mathematical sense, you know, it's something that is just gets, you know, if I ask you, do you know the highest possible number that exists? Or meanwhile, do you know?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so we don't really
That
know
would
what
be infinity. So, like,
yeah, so anything getting close to that, the closer you get to that, so that's like extremely high number. So I think that's, in practical sense, that's how you should take it. Extremely high.
I'm asking because the first one greater than 1. Every number that is above 1 will fall in that category.
Oh, I see. Oh, good point. Good catch. So what he's saying is that, yeah, something that is like 300 trillion or gazillion is still greater than 1, right? So
Yeah.
then, how far should it be? Well, first of all, elastic or perfectly elastic is an example of elastic, actually. It's just an extreme form of elastic. So actually, the categorization still holds. I don't know if my point.
Okay, in a case where I'm being asked to classify, and I say it's elastic, and someone says it's perfectly elastic, will all be correct?
Well, not exactly. I mean, when it is -5, you say elastic. When it is -300, you say elastic. If you both computed and you both got 300, and somebody says it's perfectly elastic, you know, I won't accept that one.
So then, what is the number? Maybe there should be a specific, maybe from 1 to above 1 to 100, you can categorize that in the first classification, but above 100, because that will be confusing.
Okay, Patrick Dogbe is helping you out. You see, when the denominator is approaching 0, even though that will not necessarily help you, it doesn't matter. It depends on the denominator. But essentially, when the denominator is approaching 0, or so, you know, Sandra is really troubling me with this. So we don't have any classification that says when it's exceeds, you say it's perfectly elastic. It's more illustrative than that. You never compute anything elasticity that is like 3,000 or 5,000 or something. But sometimes you know that it is approaching huge numbers. Usually that happens when the denominator gets closer and closer and closer to zero. Then we say you are approaching infinity. The number infinity is nobody knows what it is. Okay. I don't know if that helps. It just
Okay.
gets extremely
Okay.
high. Yeah. Harold, people's Harold.
All right, sir.
Sir, I wanted to ask if a number is a recurring number that can be classified as what we call perfectly elastic. Let's say 2.33333. Can it be classified as a perfectly elastic?
Say that again.
The question is, any recurring number, let's say 2.333333, can that number be said as a perfectly inelastic? Elastic.
No. Because it's just 3. It's just something slightly greater than 3. No way. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's continue. Let's continue. Let's see. So let's return to the initial example I gave you. Remember the orange and the banana example? Let's come back to that. Do you want us to come back to that? Yes, you want us to. So in that case, we said the price of orange went up 10%, and then the quantity went down 1%, right? If I ask you to compute the elasticity of the price elasticity of demand for this, what would that be? The price of orange went up 10%, the quantity demanded went down 1%. What's the price elasticity of demand?
I think one.
Anybody? It's not a rhetorical question. Don't forget the formula is percentage change in quantity over
Banana
percentage.
quantity demanded 20%.
Sorry?
That's banana is 20% and quantity demanded is 20%.
Oh, do you see 20% on the screen? Please answer what's on the screen. The price of orange has gone up 10% and the quantity has gone down 1%. Yes, more.
Sir, please. So the original price of orange would now be 101%. No, the new price of orange will now be 101%.
Sorry,
and the old price
what's the old price?
100%.
Well, where did you get that?
So it has gone up by 10%.
But where did it start from? Yes, it's gone up 10%, but where did it start from?
It was initially at 100%.
No. That one you are. I didn't say that.
Okay.
You don't need the initial. When I say, you see, the formula for the elasticity says, this is the formula for the elasticity. It simply says percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. So if I've told you the percentage change in quantity is 1%, you don't need it. You don't need anything else. That's it. Okay. Maud, do
Yes,
you
sir.
understand?
Yes, please.
So that's the percentage change in price. So in this case, the numerator is what? The quantity fell, so it's negative 1% because it's a reduction. And the denominator is what? Positive 10%. So it means that it is going to be negative 1 over 10, right? Or negative 0.1. Okay. So this is it. So is this price elastic or price inelastic?
Inelastic.
Price elastic. Are you sure?
Elastic.
Inelastic.
Inelastic.
It's inelastic because in absolute terms, it is 0.1. If you ignore the negative sign, 0.1, and it is inelastic. Now let's dig into it. So what does this tell you about a good that we say is inelastic demand? It means that the percentage change in quantity is lower than the percentage change in price. Take note, this is the formula. So the formula, let me write it down here. So the formula says, so let's take the formula in absolute terms, right? In absolute terms, ignoring the negative sign, is percentage change in quantity. Quantity demanded over percentage change in price. Okay. So if we say this is greater than 1, it has to be that the numerator is greater than the denominator. In other words, when we say a good is price elastic, whatever the percentage change in prices, the percentage change in quantity will be greater. If the ratio is greater than 1, it has to be that the numerator is greater than the denominator. And that's exactly how you can interpret it. When the percentage change, or when the elasticity in absolute terms is greater than 1, it means that the percentage change in quantity is greater than the percentage change in price. That is, for an elastic good, whatever the percentage change in price is, the percentage change in quantity will be higher, will be higher than that. Now, when the good is inelastic, it means that whatever the percentage change in price is, the percentage change in quantity will be lower. So in the example we just computed, you notice that the percentage change in quantity is lower than the percentage change in price. So when you compute the number, it will be inelastic. It belongs here. Yeah. These two belong here. Because the percentage change in quantity is lower than the percentage change in price. It's inelastic. Yes, Sandra.
Sir, please, I'm lost at the percentage change at -1 and the 10%. If you can explain how we got that. I didn't get that part well.
It comes from this information. Look at the information written under the O. It says that the percentage change, look at the arrow. It says that the price increase, right? It's a positive increase. The price, the quantity on the other hand, decrease. So it's a negative 1%. When something has fallen 1%, it's negative 1%. That's where the negative comes from.
Oh, okay. Sure. Thank you.
Right. So just to complete the example. Let's take the example of the banana, right? Because we started with orange and banana. The banana too, we said the percentage change in price so it was a 10% increase in price. And it was a 20%. Notice where the arrow is pointing. That tells you the direction. 20% decrease in quantity. So if I ask you to compute the elasticity for this, what will it be? What's the price elasticity of demand for this?
-2.
-2 to be -2. Let's show the working. So it's the same formula here. Percentage change in quantity is what? So percentage change in quantity is -20%. Because it's a reduction in quantity. And percentage change in price is what? 10%. It's positive, so it's an increase. So -20 over 10 is the same as -2. So is it elastic or inelastic?
Elastic, inelastic.
Elastic.
It is
Elastic.
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 Great. Any questions? Dinah.
So please, aren't we using percentage? So isn't it 0.2? Why is it 2%? Like, why is it
No,
2?
it's not 2%. I said -2, not 2%.
Okay, but we are using percentage, so 20% divided by 10%. If we are bringing it into numeracy, is 0.2.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
So percent will cancel percent. 0 will cancel 0. Then you are left with 2 over 1. -2 over 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Harold.
So my question is -2. -2 is less, one is greater than, let's say, one is greater than -2. And I'm seeing
Absolute terms. I think
yes,
I've mentioned that many times. So -2 in absolute terms is greater than 1. So if you ignore the sign, it is 2. 2 is greater
yes,
than 1, isn't it?
yes, sir.
So it is elastic. Yeah. Okay. Great. Any other question, guys? Yes. Did
Sir, please, so when you have your answer and it's even in the negative, just like you said, I just want for emphasis because of the law of demand, the elasticity is always in the negative. So if you have the negatives, and when you take the negative off and it's less than or greater than 1, you interpret it as a figure without the integer, that's without the negatives, right?
correct.
Okay,
Then,
thank you.
and also just to emphasize, if I ask you what is the elasticity, don't tell me it's 2. Say it's -2. But if I ask you, is it elastic or inelastic? Then you can ignore the negatives and use this classification. That's what you need to know. But the elasticity itself is still -2. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Nice. Okay, let's move on. Now, so you might be wondering, what on earth are we learning elasticity for? I suspect that's what Hassana is wondering, right? Hassana, is that what you are wondering?
Okay, it's okay.
Oh, are you sure? Are you not wondering why on a Friday evening I'm bothering you with a concept called elasticity?
I can hear the elasticity, but everything happening now, my brain is not able to take it. I'm just listening. I don't know what to do.
Oh, then rest. Yes.
No, sir, I'll
Take
just
it in a relaxed mode.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, this class is Friday evening, after we've had a long week. So you have to find an equilibrium that works for you, okay? Yes,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to find an equilibrium. You have to make Friday evenings work. Yeah. Okay, so what do you use elasticity for? Well, elasticity, believe it or not, is one of the most widely applied concepts in economics. We use elasticity for a lot of things. We apply elasticity in a lot of areas in economics. So we are going to look at we are just going to start with a simple application. Very simple application, right? Okay. I don't even know why I cleaned the example. Anyway, there are a lot of messages. Okay, people are just computing. So let's bring back the oranges and the orange. Maybe let me write it in full so that people are wondering what is O and what is B. Let's write orange. Orange and banana. Banana. Le banana. Great. So for orange, you increase your price by 10%. And the quantity fell by 1%. Here's a simple question. If you are the banana seller, is your sales or your total amount sold, is that likely to increase or to decrease? You increase your price by 10% and the quantity falls by only 1%. What do you think is likely to happen to your sales?
Your sales will go high.
Your sales is likely to increase, right?
Yes.
Don't forget that we've already said that if you increase your price by 10% and the quantity falls by 1%, it is price inelastic. Now, let's take the example of the banana. You increase your price 10% and your quantity falls by 20%. What's likely to happen to your sales?
The sales will go down.
Yes. Now that is the first application of the concept of elasticity. And that is that when you increase your price, whether your sales will increase or decrease depends on the elasticity. Everybody is increasing their price. So if you increase your price, will you make more sales or you make less sales? It depends on the elasticity. In particular, we just learned that if the demand is price inelastic and you increase your price, your sales will rise. If the demand is price elastic and you increase your price, your sales will fall. That is it. That is one application of the concept of elasticity. So when we are changing our price, how it will affect our total revenue depends on the elasticity. A general way of putting that message is contained in the next slide. And the next slide is what you call the total revenue test. Total revenue test. So if you don't like equations, you can ignore this expression. We derived it from somewhere. We don't need the derivation, but this helps us. All that this is telling us is this. The relationship between your price and your sales depends on the elasticity. The relationship between your price and the sales depends on the elasticity. If demand is price elastic, then price and your sales go in opposite direction. If demand is price elastic, price and sales move in opposite direction. In other words, if demand is price elastic and you increase your price, your sales will fall. If demand is price elastic and you reduce your price, your sales will rise. On the other hand, if demand is price inelastic, if demand is price inelastic, then your price and your sales move in the same direction. So if demand is price inelastic and you want to increase your sales, increase your price. If demand is price inelastic and you reduce your sales, if you reduce your price, your sales will fall. Okay? That is the total revenue test. Now, That is one application. Now, let's extend it beyond the classroom and try to understand. I am sure all of you remember a tax called e-levy. Do you all remember something called e-levy? Have you even heard about it?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
You know, the e-levy was introduced it was introduced as part of the 2022 budget. It was first announced in November 2021, and it generated a lot of debate. Now, in the course of that debate, many economists were telling the government that, well, first of all, the government felt that in the first year alone, the e-levy is going to fetch 6 billion cedis, and subsequently something above 9 billion cedis every year. That's what the government projected. Many economists, like myself, said no, the government is completely overstating how much revenue the e-levy will give. Because many economists felt that the demand for electronic transfer services are price elastic. So if you impose the tax and it increases the price, many people will stop using, and therefore you don't make a lot of revenue. That's the argument a lot of economists made. But the government said no, it has done its own numbers, and it is sure that it is going to make the revenue. And we said, okay, let's wait and see. In fact, I'm going to fetch an article on this particular subject from my Joy Online, and we read it. It's an article that we have used in the past in exam questions. We already told you that for this class. We like application. You heard it, right? I don't know whether you didn't hear it or you don't like what I'm saying. Which is which? Oh, you are just moody, so you don't want to mind me.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, look at my friends. Okay. I'm going to open up the article and read it. Okay, so not to remind anybody of because what we are going to read involves a politician who lost his life earlier in the year. May his soul rest in peace, Mr. John
Amen.
Kuma. Mr. John Kuma, and we went to the same secondary school. He was a school prefect at Opoko when we were in school.
Oh, okay.
So even though we disagreed, his loss was a big issue. Okay, so here is it. This is an article. Can you see it?
Yes, please.
This is an article in the heat of the debate when many people were saying that no, the e-levy will not fetch the government the revenue it was thinking. Here is a publication attributed to the late John Kuma. It says our research shows 20% drop in mobile transactions after e-levy introduction. Let's read it. Deputy Finance Minister John Ampontua Kuma says government is expecting a 24% drop in mobile transactions after the introduction of electronic transaction levy. Quote, the research we did told us that there will be about 24% attrition rate in the 3 months to 6 months that we introduce it. The same research told us what should be done to bring back those people after a while. And we know when we have all these things in place. The Judicial legislator said this notwithstanding, government having a plan, said this notwithstanding, government has a plan in place to undertake a lot of education on the controversial 1.75% charge on electronic transactions, which has been rejected by the minority in parliament. Quote, it is a matter of engagement and letting people understand that. Don't avoid it. It is your pride of place as a Ghanaian to know that your contribution is helping to build a country. The Mobile Money Association of Ghana has petitioned the Minority Caucus in Parliament to ensure that the new electronic transaction levy, e-levy, is rejected when it is introduced. That's what he said. Okay. This is it. Now, let's digest this and try and understand why this matters. This hinges on the elasticity of demand. If we say that the demand for mobile transaction services are elastic, it means that when you increase the charges a lot, many people will stop using it. That's what elastic means. In this case, the information that the minister was giving, actually was suggesting that the demand was going to be heavily price elastic. In other words, because this is what he's saying, you are imposing a charge of 1.75%, and according to him, the data is saying in the first 3 to 6 months, the reduction in transactions will be 24%, right? So if you were to compute the elasticity, it will be what? It will be negative 24 over 1.7, right? Which exactly says it's extremely elastic. It means when you impose a small charge on the transactions, many people will stop using. And our basic, what we are learning in class tells us that, you see, when you impose a tax on something and people stop consuming, a lot of revenue. So, it was quite surprising. His own research that he's quoting is actually saying that they will make a lot of revenue. But let's just say the rest, they say, is history. As it turned out, we know that the e-levy badly underperformed. In the first year, I don't think the government even made 1 billion of the estimated 6. And subsequently, up to this point, I don't think it's even topped 3 billion. But this is a very important application of elasticity. And we can stretch it to try and understand what kind of things government like to tax a lot. So I teach an international finance and international trade and finance class on Wednesdays to executive students. And then on Wednesday, we were trying to look at Ghana's trade policy, and we brought a recent customs bill from Ghana's port, and we counted 19 different tax items, 19 different tax items or charges. Now, so you see, in this country, whenever government want to raise more revenue, there are some category of items that I like to tax a lot. Can you name some?
Fuel.
Fuel, yes. That's always top of the agenda. What else?
Imported goods.
Imported goods. Now, why does the government like taxing fuel imported goods? Because the demand for those items are relatively inelastic. We know that as for Ghanaians, we can't stop importing, right? We import everything, including human beings, right? So if you impose the tax on the imports and the price goes up, you will complain, but you have no option, you keep buying. Therefore, you'll be able to make more revenue. The same applies to fuel. If you impose a tax on fuel, we won't say we will stop buying fuel because you have to drive around, right? Of course, we will make small adjustments. So maybe where we can walk, we start walking, we stop driving. But in the main, we still buy fuel. So that way, the quantity will not reduce much. So we'll be able to make more revenue. But if you go and impose a tax on something that the demand is price elastic, you don't make a lot of revenue. Once the tax increases the price, people stop consuming and you make a lot of revenue. That was exactly the problem with the e-levy. According to what we've read, the data that they themselves are putting out said that the demand is elastic. You make revenue. And yet, for whatever reason, we projected that we make revenue. Anyway, that's one application of elasticity. It tells us that when demand is price inelastic, you can easily raise revenue by raising your price. If demand is price elastic, the only way to raise your to raise revenue is to reduce your price. That one, even if you reduce your price a little bit, you will make more revenue. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any objections? I don't think you do. Okay.
I
The
have
hand
a
is up.
question.
Yes, Victor, go ahead.
So with the EDB issue, I'm wondering how they were able to get the data, because from our calculations, we need certain, like the change in quantity and the change in price, and how they're able to get the data to make those projections. I'm just wondering how they're able to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering to please don't ask me to answer that question. I don't know. The article we read never told us what it. We just read the article. It just says their own research. They never pointed to where the research is published, right?
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't know where they got their data from. But whatever data they've got, either they misinterpreted the data or maybe the data was swapped. But I mean, it's clear. You see, for something like this, yes, you need empirical data, but for E-level, you don't even need, you don't necessarily need the empirical data, because we are going to talk about what sort of things make some items price elastic and price inelastic. So even without empirical data, you'll be able to tell me something and I'll say this one, the demand will be price inelastic. Take the fuel example. You know, you don't need it. It doesn't. It's not rocket science to come to that conclusion, because we know that the people have to drive anyway. So they can't say because fuel price have gone up, you stop driving. When fuel price went to 25, we're still driving. Oh. So let me see. I think we don't have enough time. We have 5
Come on,
minutes.
come on, okay, class. Can't be actually. Okay?
Jasmine is definitely not in class, even though she's telling somebody she's in class. Okay, let's introduce this. You know, it's almost time, but let's introduce it and then we can leave it. Okay, let's do it. So, determinants of price elasticity of demand, i.e., factors that will make the demand for some things price elastic and some price inelastic. Number one is the number of substitutes. The number and availability of substitutes. In general, if some item has a lot of substitutes, the demand is likely to be price elastic. If the item has many substitutes, the demand will be price elastic. Why? Because when you increase the price, then the customers have so many alternatives to go to, they'll go there. So they're sensitive to the price. But if the good doesn't have alternatives, even if you increase the price, where are they going to go? They have to keep buying, right? So in that case, the demand is likely to be price inelastic. So in general, goods that have many substitutes, the demand tends to be more price elastic than goods that don't have many substitutes. So as a good that has many substitutes tend to have more price elastic demand compared with a good that doesn't have many substitutes. Now, another factor that is likely to make a good price elastic is whether the good is a necessity or a luxury. God willing, next week, we will give you the technical definition of what a luxury is and what a necessity is. Whether a good is a luxury or necessity depends on the income elasticity of demand, which we determine next week. But here's the thing. When something is a necessity, it means that people cannot do without it, right? Loosely speaking. Then it means even when you increase the price, people cannot stop buying. So the demand will be pricing elastic. For instance, let's take the fuel example, right? For many people, fuel is a necessity. You have to drive to work. Okay?
Electricity.
Electricity. Yes, it's a necessity. So even if you increase the price, people will have no option. We can't say we stop using electricity. But if something is a luxury, like so a Ferrari, or for some people even an iPhone, if the price is out of my reach, who cares? I'm not driving a Ferrari. Have I died? I don't care. But like a basic car that you need for work, that one the demand is going to be price inelastic because you need a car. Okay. So in general, when a good has so many substitutes, demand tends to be more price elastic. When a good is a luxury, demand tends to be more price elastic. Do you understand? Of course you do. You do. Okay. So I think our time is just about up. So we'll wrap this up here after taking one question from Selom. Selom, tell us.
So please, can you take the last part of the number of substitutes and the necessity again?
So if a good has more substitutes, demand tends to be more price elastic. Also, if a good is a luxury, demand tends to be more price elastic.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Great. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's class. Thank you for showing up and for your attendance and comportment. Dede doesn't want us to stop the class, so Dede, go
Oh,
ahead.
sir, please, the last one. So I'm looking at necessity good like water.
Yeah.
Yeah, water. I think in one of your slides, you asked that why is it that the price of diamonds are higher than that of water? Even though diamond is a luxury and water is a necessity.
Yeah. That one we will not answer it by elasticity. No, that one is not elasticity that answers it. The simple answer is simple. Diamond is rare. Water is not rare. Diamond is rare. So you always get to consume very little diamond. That means the value you place on diamond is higher than water. It's related to a concept called diminishing marginal utility. When you consume more of a good, you value it less. Because we don't get a lot of diamond to consume, diamond is rare. Therefore, we value it more, and that's why we are willing to pay higher price for it. As for water, even though it's a necessity, we have a lot of water to drink. We've consumed a lot of water, so we don't value an extra cup as much as we value an extra piece of diamond. That is the answer to that question.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Great. So, well, I think that brings us to the end of the class for today. Thank you for your attendance and participation. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you when I see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Okay, have a good night.